John, you were talking about Melo and the spotlight, and George Karl has this book coming out called Furious George. And he says, Carmelo was a true conundrum for me. In the 6 years I had him, he was the best offensive player ever coached. He was also a user of people, addicted to the spotlight and very unhappy when he had to share it after the game tonight. Melo asked about those comments.
The truth of the matter is everybody else is kind of speaking up for me, and they, from their own experience, so I really don't have to speak on it. When I write my book later, if this would have came out years ago, I mean, I haven't been in Denver in 6, 7 years. I haven't played with under him in 6, 7 years, and it's just when you're there, it's just a different story, than what you hear after the fact. I never knew it was this much. I never knew I was I don't know, what's the word, conundrum? I don't even know what the hell that means, to be honest with you. We came together, we stuck together as a team, and that's at the end of the day, that's all we had, out there. And it took us far, not far enough to where we was able to win the championship, but we came together as a team because of all of that.
There were a number of things in that excerpt from the book that grabbed everybody's attention and had them talking. We showed you that one there about Carmelo. Also said that he really lit my fuse with his low demand of himself on defense. He had no commitment to the hard, dirty work of stopping the other guy. My ideal, probably every coach's ideal, is when your best player is also your leader, but since Carmelo only played hard on one side of the ball, he made it plain he couldn't lead the Nuggets.
George Karl is a good friend of mine. I've always admired him and respected him. But this was such a low blow for him as a coach. I'm really just disappointed in him because George had a great career. He was a hell of a coach, and he didn't have to. He's probably done coaching, but to come out with this stuff after he retired, I can't even explain how disappointed and mad I am at him. Just a man of his coaching ability and who had his career to come back after the fact and take shots at not just Carmelo, but Kenyon Martin, J.R. Smith. First of all, if he had said when he was playing, it would have been totally different. But to say it after the fact to add some juice to a book coming out, I'm just very disappointed in George Karl.
And Kenyon Martin was criticized, as was J.R. Smith. And he talked about all three being AAU babies, akin to the spoiled brats you see in junior golf and junior tennis. And he said Kenyon and Carmelo carried two big burdens, all that money and no father to show them how to act like a man. Kenyon Martin fired away, as you might expect, in a series of tweets. Called him an awful coach, a coward. I didn't have a father growing up, we all know that. What's George Karl's excuse for being a terrible person? It's just gotten ugly, and it's
unnecessary.
And I hear what you're saying too, Chuck, because George Karl's a friend of mine too.
Yeah.
And we watched George go through a terrible personal struggle with cancer and fight his way through that and get back on the sidelines. It's surprising. That's the way. It's surprising to me.
And it doesn't serve a purpose. Like I say, George had a great career. It's probably over. And to just ride off into the sunset, it serves no purpose to try to trash these three guys. And listen, I understand when you're writing a book, you want juicy facts in there. Because nobody want to hear about X's and O's, zone defenses, man, oh man. They want you to say things about people. But to me, it just serves no purpose. And George Karl is too good of a coach and too good of a person to go that low.
Yep. Well, the one thing that, we all admire George as a coach. We admire what he's done. His knowledge of the game is probably, unparalleled in few places. He's a Carolina brethren. I was surprised And I was surprised because of this. When you have a player-coach relationship, there is a privacy that you would expect that if you're having conversations or actions that will never get out, because you're supposedly in the trenches and you have these deep moments, and sometimes your coach could call you in the office. And so now those private conversations that players will have, they go, well, I'm going to have this, it's going to be in a book. And I was a little, and it happened earlier when I think Phil Jackson wrote his book and then Kobe was in it.
Yeah.
I was surprised because some of those were private conversations that the person is not aware that you're going to make public, and they might act differently. And then secondly, you're talking about a Carmelo Anthony, at 19, 20 years old. He came out of college college as a freshman, and then played in the NBA. So you're talking about a young man you should have to coach. Could be the definition of coach. You have to mentor him, you have to teach him, and he has to learn things. So they're not coming to you ready-made. And that is your job, and especially at the college level, and as an NBA level now, because the players are so young, that is your job to mentor these young men. And Carmelo obviously is not the same person that he was, at 19 and 20. He's probably one of the biggest activists that we have. When you say in basketball, who is it? You say Carmelo Anthony jumps out in terms of activism in the community and what's going on. So we know at 19, 20, and as a basketball player, we can pick holes at any player right now other than probably LeBron.
But I want to say this, and this is going to be my biggest point. I wasn't a great defender. I was a great offensive player and a great rebounder. If somebody want to criticize my defense, that's fair. But the biggest problem I had with George's whole thing, I mean, when you start talking about guys' fathers, like, that crosses a line to me especially, because you don't know what happened in that guy's life. You don't know, when you start saying they didn't have fathers, you don't know the entire situation. Because I guarantee you, no player is going to talk to his coach about his father relationship. So to me, that really crossed the line.
I agree, because I think the one thing that Charles and I always agree on, we said we're never going to question your passion, we're never going to question your inner ability, and we're never going to question your integrity, because we can't measure those things. But also, the reason that those guys might have had some checkered past is maybe the thing that propelled them to get where they are. And so that sometimes fuels you not having certain things in your life. It fuels you to get to a point, and then you need a coach. You need a Dean Smith. You need a person that comes into your life and mentors you through moments that are bigger than basketball.
This is...
And he had an opportunity to do that as well.
Yeah.
George did, to mentor them to opportunities bigger than basketball.
And just like you say, George has had a great career, and to say this at the end of your career, something happened, like Carmelo said, I haven't been in Denver in 6 or 7 years. To bring that up this late after the fact, that's just wrong.
And last thing,
that's why I'm just saying it's surprising to me knowing George the way I do.
Yeah. And you look at what Popovich's relationship with Duncan was. He said he was like my dad because he coached him and he mentored him. That's part of coaching, is mentoring.
We will be back more inside after this.